My parents' voices cracked through the phone. Living with her is awful, but we're only here for the money. My sister laughed as if it were a joke. I'm Claire, 33 years old, and one late evening turned my life upside down. I had just finished what seemed like a typical phone call with my folks when I noticed they hadn't hung up. Their voices cracked through my phone, crisp and uncensored, as they spoke with my sister. My father's tone was chilly and almost mechanical. It's difficult to live with her, but we are simply staying for her money. Before I could process it, my sister's laughter pierced through the air. Cruel taunting, as if she had known the truth all along. My palm grabbed the phone so firmly that it ached, and my heart was pounding so hard that it felt like it was about to break free. The room whirled and my gut twisted, but I didn't weep or scream. I just sat there, paralyzed, as each syllable cut itself into me. They assumed I had gone oblivious, while in fact I was hearing their treachery in real time. Each second stretched beyond infinity. My parents, the people I trusted the most in the world, saw me not as a daughter, but as a bank account. My sister's laughter rang in my thoughts, each note taunting me and reaffirming how little I really meant to them. I remained on my couch long after the call had finished, staring at the black screen of my phone and repeating the scene over and over. Had things always been this way? Had each pleasant phrase been tinged with calculation? I did not have the answers. All I knew was that nothing could undo what I'd just heard. These remarks had drawn a line that I could never cross again. They changed everything. Before I proceed, I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever discovered something about your family that changed the way you viewed them? Please share your story in the comments. I'd like to know how you handled the weight of betrayal and what it taught you about trust. The next morning, I poured coffee as if nothing had happened. The kitchen smelled like toast and bacon, like it always did, but every motion seemed like I was acting in an unrehearsed performance. I placed plates on the table, flipped pancakes and wiped off counters, my hands steady despite the storm in my thoughts. I needed to keep it together. I had to watch them without giving myself away. My father shuffled in and grabbed a mug without glancing at me. His gaze shifted to the newspaper, avoiding mine as if he knew I'd heard something I shouldn't. "Morning," he murmured, barely audible, before hiding his face in the sports section. I nodded, forced a smile, and watched him drink his coffee too quickly, as if he was in a hurry to get somewhere else. My mother followed her bright, phony voice as she talked. "About a neighbor's new automobile. Isn't it fancy?" she asked, laughing too loudly and fiddling with a napkin. I agreed, I said calmly, but my gut twisted. She was trying too hard, compensating for something. Then my sister Lena slouched in, absorbed to her phone and barely grunted a greeting. Her thumb sped across the screen, most likely going through social media or texting someone about her failed clothing brand. She didn't even look at the breakfast I'd prepared. I kept moving, cleaning plates, but my eyes were keen, capturing every detail. Dad's fidgeting, Mom's fake enthusiasm, and Lena's indifferent demeanor made them seem like strangers with familiar faces. I'd always assumed we were a close-knit family who shared everything. 4 years ago I purchased this large house in Portland, Oregon, so we could all live together. After my grandfather died, I inherited enough to cover the mortgage, bills, groceries, utilities, and even Mom's shopping sprees. I assumed they had moved in gratefully. Dad retired early. Mom too, and Lena, a few years older, had relied on me since her business failed. I'd paid for everything, no questions asked, thinking it was what families did. But suddenly, every recollection seemed contaminated. Had they always viewed me as a financial account? I remembered Dad asking about my finances last month, with a casual yet questioning tone. Or when Mom pressed me to treat them to a lavish supper, her smile was too big. Lena never offered to help out, always stating she was between jobs. I'd dismissed it, supposing they were just suffering. Their activities appeared to be more deliberate now. While washing a pan, I took out my phone and launched the note app. I put, "Dad avoids eye contact. Mom is very happy. Lena does not care." I added extra times. Dad inquired about my investments. Mom is suddenly interested in my work bonuses. Lena's incessant phone scrolling. Each element seemed like a puzzle piece, producing an image I wasn't expecting to see. I wasn't sure what they were hiding, but I'd find out. Later that day, I caught Lena glancing at my laptop, which was left open on the counter. When I stepped in, she hurriedly closed it, muttering something about checking the weather. My stomach churned. Something seemed wrong. I stuck to my routine, drove to my software work, and coded during meetings, but my mind was elsewhere. I remembered giving Mom the nice coat she wanted for Christmas last year. She'd held me and called me her rock, but those words suddenly seemed hollow. Dad clapped my shoulder, happy of my success. Was it pride or greed? Lena had scarcely thanked me for the money I gave her for business costs. I believed I was helping, but perhaps I was just their meal ticket. By evening, I was sitting in my room, phone in hand, going through my notes. I added another. Lena checked my laptop today. I did not face them yet. I needed more than suspicion. I would observe and delve deeper. They assumed I was clueless, but I was fully awake now. This, my house, was no longer a home. It was a stage, and I had finished playing their game. By Wednesday, I was noticing things I had previously disregarded. Dad's harsh and probing queries about my finances felt different now. At breakfast, he leaned across the table, coffee mug in hand, and said, "How's that investment account doing, Claire?" His tone was casual, but his eyes darted away too quickly, as if he was looking for something. I shrugged, said everything was okay, and switched the conversation to the weather. He didn't push, but the air was thick, like if he was waiting for me to slip up. I noticed him later, flipping through stations on the living room TV, his fingers tapping nervously. It wasn't a one-time event. He asked about my work bonuses last week, and he wanted to know about my savings the month before that. I had assumed he was just being a concerned father. Now it felt like he was keeping score. Mom wasn't doing much better. She returned home that afternoon with shopping bags, luxury purses, a silk scarf, and shoes priced higher than my monthly vehicle payment. "Just a little treat," she explained, smiling cheerfully as she unpacked them on the kitchen counter. I nodded, but my thoughts raced. Those weren't minor things. I'd seen her splurge before, new dresses, fancy cooking gadgets. But this was too much even for her. She noticed me gazing and giggled, brushing it off. "You work so hard, Claire, and we deserve to enjoy it too." Her comment stung, as if she thought my money was theirs to squander. I didn't confront her, simply kept my face neutral, but internally, I was adding everything up. Lena was the absolute worst. She hadn't worked in months and said her fashion business was on hold. I discovered her splayed on the couch, phone in hand, surfing around social media rather than looking for work. "Anything new with your designs?" I inquired, keeping my voice light. She hardly looked up and muttered, "Not yet, I'm too busy." "With what?" "Posting selfies and liking others' postings." I remembered when she had begged me for a loan to launch her brand, which I had given without hesitation. Her sloth blazed at me, a clue I'd overlooked for far too long. That evening, I began digging by taking a stack of bills from a drawer in my home office. Utility bills, credit card statements, and restaurant receipts. They were all in my name and paid from my account. I hadn't considered it previously. I only wanted to keep the family comfortable. However, as I flipped through, the numbers did not add up. A $600 supper at a steakhouse I had never visited. A $2,400 charge for boutique apparel that I did not possess. A membership to a streaming service that I didn't use. My hands shook as I spread the papers on my desk. Each one is a question mark. Who was spending this? Mom's baggage appeared in my head. Dad asks questions. Lena's nonstop scrolling. I noted down the charges on my phone, next to the notes I had started on Monday. The list grew, and so did the knot in my gut. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling and attempting to make sense of it. Have they always been like this? When I accepted my IT job, I remembered family dinners, Mom's loving hugs, and Dad's happy smiles. Were real, or part of the act? Lena used to tell me about her dreams and failures. She now felt like a stranger, as if I were only a means to an end. I wanted to believe that they loved me. Not just my bank account, but the proof was building up. I didn't have proof yet, not the type I could present and demand answers for, but the signals were clear. Later that week, I saw Mom sneak a credit card statement into her purse. Her movements were rapid, as if she didn't want me to notice. "Just organizing," she replied when I raised an eyebrow. I didn't purchase it. At dinner, Lena grumbled about her phone being too slow, implying that she needed a new one. Dad chimed in, saying I could help out because I was doing so well. I smiled nervously, said I'd think about it, then excused myself to my room. Alone, I reopened my note app and typed, "Mom hit a statement. Lena wants a new phone." Dad's pushing again. I wasn't ready to address them. Not without something concrete. That Friday I sat alone in my office repeating their remarks. Not the ones on the call. I put those out of my thoughts, but they had repeatedly encouraged me to open my wallet. I glanced at my computer screen, code blurring as recollections became clearer. Last summer, Mom insisted on a family vacation to the Smoky Mountains, claiming it would be beneficial to us. I had paid for the cabin, food, and even gas, while she grinned and termed it bonding. Dad had urged me to pay for their car repairs, claiming they were short on funds. I had given out thousands of dollars, thinking I was helping. Lena was the most daring. always asking for just a little to keep her fashion fantasies alive. I supported her website, fabric orders, and marketing. None of it ever worked out. Each memory seemed like a brick, forming a barrier between the family I imagined I had and the actuality. I couldn't remain in that workplace, surrounded by lines of code that made more sense than my life. I got my jacket and headed to a downtown coffee shop where I'd planned to meet my buddy Maya. She was already there, sipping a cappuccino, with her laptop open to a graphic design job. I slid into the seat, and before I could stop myself, the story came out. The call? My parents' betrayal, and Lena's nasty laugh. Maya's eyes flared and then softened. "Claire? That's awful," she replied, grabbing for my hand. "You don't deserve that." Her voice was steady and grounded me. She didn't sugarcoat it, simply listened and leaned forward. "You're smart. Don't let them play you. Get the facts. Protect yourself." I nodded, her words breaking through the fog in my thoughts. She did not try to make me feel better or pretend it was not serious. She simply provided me clarity. I left the coffee shop feeling lighter and able to breathe again. Driving home, I began to tear apart old memories that had been buried under the weight of familial allegiance. Growing up, Mom and Dad had always prioritized Lena. They paid for her art lessons, despite the fact that we were struggling financially. When I started college, they barely celebrated because they were too busy bailing out Lena from a failed modeling job. I had pushed my way through school by coding late at night while Lena partied, relying on their support. I believed I had moved on from that mindset. Buying a property in Portland, Oregon indicated we were now equals. But the more I remembered, the clearer everything got. They had always seen her as the star, and me as the safety net. It wasn't love that motivated their choices. It was all about convenience. As I pulled into the driveway, my determination hardened. I wanted answers, not just suspicions. Back in my home office, I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. I had reviewed bills previously, but this time I would go further. Every transaction, transfer, and withdrawal, my fingers flew over the keyboard as I retrieved statements from the previous 8 months. I didn't know what I'd uncover, but I knew it wouldn't be just hazy receipts. If they were utilizing me, there would be a trail. Dad's questioning regarding my assets, Mom's shopping bags, and Lena's constant excuses were not random. I created a new note on my phone and labeled it, Proof. Over the weekend, I accessed my bank account. My home office was quiet, with the only sound coming from my laptop when I opened the financial dashboard I'd been ignoring for far too long. I'd been paying for everything: house electricity, Mom's shopping, Lena's dreams. But I'd never really looked into where the money went. Now I clicked through the transactions, my heart sinking with each one. There they were, dozens of transfers from my funds to an account I didn't recognize. Thousands of dollars were delivered in installments over months, branded consulting fees or miscellaneous. I double-checked the date. Some matched times when Lena had offered new concepts for her clothesline. Others lined up for Mom's treats. My parents had access to my secondary account to cover household expenditures. But this was different. They had not asked or said anything. I scrolled on, my fingers trembling. A $5,000 transfer was made last month, followed by another $3,000 2 weeks ago. I accessed the account information and discovered the receiver, a company registered in Lena's name. My sister's unsuccessful fashion venture, which she said was almost set to restart, was being funded with my money. I leaned back as the truth struck me like a slap. They weren't just squandering, they were funneling my inheritance to support her fanciful ambition. I felt ill, deceived, and needed to hear it from them. On Sunday morning, I discovered Mom in the kitchen, chopping veggies for lunch. I kept my voice steady and conversational. "Hey Mom, I was looking at some bank statements. I saw some big transfers. Do you know anything about them?" She hesitated, knife poised over a carrot, then grinned too fast. "Oh, just some gifts for Lena, to help her get back on her feet." Her gaze did not reach mine, instead darting to the counter. "Gifts?" I asked, coming closer. "Thousands of dollars without asking me?" She chuckled with a tense edge. "Claire, don't make a big deal. It's family, and we share, right?" Her words were light, but they felt like a dodge. A cozy lie. I nodded, seeming to let it go, but my thoughts were racing. She was hiding something, and I wasn't buying it anymore. I haven't confronted Dad or Lena yet. I had to make certain to defend what was mine. That afternoon, I traveled to a nearby bank office in Portland, Oregon. The teller, a friendly woman wearing spectacles, guided me through the process of opening a new savings account that only I could access. I sat in her office, signing documents, my phone ringing with a text message from Lena. "Can we talk about my next collection?" I ignored it, concentrating on the paperwork. Back at home, I logged in again and deposited half of my inheritance, 6 figures from my grandfather's estate, to the new account. It felt like reclaiming a part of me. I changed the passwords on my other accounts and locked my parents out of the secondary one. They'd notice quickly, but I'd be prepared. On Sunday night, I sat at my workstation, marveling at the new account balance. The transfers to Lena's business were not simply thoughtless. They were premeditated, a betrayal orchestrated behind my back. Mom's deception about the gifts proved it. I recalled all the times I had trusted them, paid over money, and believed we were a team. Now I've seen the truth. They had taken advantage of me, and Lena was complicit. My determination hardened. I wasn't simply safeguarding my money. I was defending myself. I opened my note app and added one last entry. Mom lied about the transfers. They're stealing. I didn't know how I'd confront them, but I knew I would, soon. Sunday supper began normally, until I spoke up. The dining room smelled like roasted chicken, and plates clinked as Mom passed the mashed potatoes. Dad cut the steak with his knife steady, while Lena read through her phone, scarcely touching her food. I sat across from them, my fork laying on my plate and my heart beating. I'd been planning this all day, mentally rehearsing the words, evidence, transfers, lying. Hidden statements were stacked in my head like a deck of cards. I couldn't eat or pretend anymore. I placed down my napkin, took a deep breath, and continued. I heard your call last week. You did not hang up, and I know what you really think of me. Silence struck the table like a hammer. Dad's knife halted in the middle of a slice. Mom's smile froze, and Lena's phone fell to her lap. What are you talking about? Mom inquired, her voice raised and trembling. And I fixed my gaze on hers. You said living with me is awful. But you're staying for my money. Lena laughed as though it were a joke. Dad coughed and laid his knife down. It was just talk, sweetheart, he explained, his tone overly mild, as if he were calming a child. We didn't mean it. Mom swiftly nodded. We were joking, Claire. You know we love you. Their statement seemed prepared and hollow, like lines from a lousy script. I turned to Lena and waited. She gazed at her plate before laughing sharply and dismissively. You're blowing this out of proportion, she remarked, rolling her eyes. That laugh, that sneer, was the same as over the phone, and it made my blood boil. I pushed my chair back, stood, and joked. Then explain the thousands you transferred to Lena's business without asking me. Mom's face turned pale, and Dad's jaw tightened. That was for the family, Mom mumbled. We thought you'd want to help. I cut her off. Help? You lied, Mom. You called it a gift when I asked. I trusted you, all of you, and you've been using me. Lena grumbled and crossed her arms. You're so controlling, Claire, always acting like you're above us. Her comments stung, but I wasn't done. I got out my phone, launched a social media app and displayed a screenshot. Controlling like this post. Lena described me as a stingy control freak who hoards her money. I discovered it that morning, a public post on her page slamming me to her followers. Mom gave a gasp. Dad turned away and Lena's smirk disappeared. I tossed the phone on the table, the screenshot staring back at them. I saw the transfers, the lies, the post. I'm done being your bank. Dad tried again, this time using a stronger voice. Claire, calm down, we're family, we don't mean harm. But I was done calming down. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't mock you behind your back. I glanced at each of them. Dad's guilty stare, Mom's shaking hands, and Lena's indignant expression. I want you out of my house, all of you, by tomorrow. Mom's fork clattered onto her dish. You can't mean that, she muttered. Lena laughed bitterly this time. Good luck living alone, Claire, you'll miss us. I did not flinch. I'll manage. Pack your things. They sat startled as I walked to my room. My heart hammered, but my steps remained strong. I'd given them everything. My home, my money, my trust, and they'd thrown it back at me. Lena's article was the final straw, proving she never saw me as a sister, only as a resource. I locked the door, sat on my bed, and opened my note app. I typed, they're leaving. I'm free. The house was still mine, and I'd keep it that way. They may attempt to negotiate their way out, but I had had it. Monday morning, the house seemed deserted. The dining room table, where I confronted them last night, remained bare. No plates, no voices. My father, mother, and Lena had packed their belongings and left by daybreak, wheeling their luggage out the door, while I remained in my bed, avoiding goodbyes. I moved through the living room, observing the spaces. Mom's favorite throw blanket is gone. Dad's reading glasses are vanished from the coffee table. Lena's charger is no longer twisted on the couch. They'd moved to a modest rental apartment across Portland, which I'd overheard Mom say to a friend on the phone while loading the car. The silence in the home was deafening, but it also provided a peculiar sense of relief, as if I had dropped a weight I had carried for far too long. As I was making coffee, my phone buzzed. Mom texted, "Claire, we're sorry. We never meant to hurt you. Can we talk?" Dad texted, "You're overreacting, sweetheart. Let's fix this." Lena's message was shorter. "You didn't have to kick us out. Call me." Their words seemed like a pull on the part of me that still desired a family. But I could see through them now. The apologies were too rapid and professional, as if they were attempting to entice me back in. I put the phone down, leaving their messages unanswered. I'd had enough of their excuses at dinner, as well as their phony promises of joking and family sharing. I wasn't falling for it again. By lunchtime, I was sitting in a downtown lawyer's office, a tiny practice suggested by a colleague. The lawyer, a lady with sharp eyes and a notepad, listened as I described the transfers, lies, and social media post. "You need to secure your assets," she added, taking notes. "We'll draft a cease and desist letter for any further unauthorized access and review your property rights." I nodded and signed the paperwork to begin the process. My house and inheritance were mine, and I'd make sure no one touched them again. The lawyer's cool efficiency grounded me, reminding me that I was taking charge rather than simply reacting. Back home, I stood in the kitchen, staring at the area where Mom had sliced vegetables and Lena had browsed her phone. The freedom was real. I could breathe without their judgment and demands. But my heart grieved because of what we had lost. I remembered Dad teaching me how to ride a bike and Mom making my birthday cakes. Even Lena braided my hair when we were kids. Those memories felt so distant now, tainted by their treachery. I didn't cry, but the sadness hung heavy, a silent reminder of the family I'd imagined we were. I opened my laptop, logged into my new bank account, and saw the balance I had protected. It wasn't only about money. It was my future, and I was willing to fight for it. 6 months later, I moved to a new apartment. The space was smaller than my previous home in Portland, but every nook was mine, clean, peaceful, and devoid of secrets. I had sold the property, pocketed the profit, and established my life on my own terms. My days were filled with coding projects, late-night debugging sessions, and coffee runs that were free of family drama. I lived for myself, not for others' expectations. Maya stopped me one evening, bringing takeout and a mix of old music we used to listen to in college. "This place suits you, Claire," she added, smiling as we unpacked the noodles on my new couch. We smiled as we discussed work and her current design client. No heavy confessions or advice needed. It was just friendship, easy and real, the kind I'd almost forgotten. I learned about my father and mother through a common acquaintance. They were getting by in their leased abode. No more extravagant dinners or designer handbags. Dad had gotten a part-time work at a hardware shop, and Mom was selling her old jewelry online to help pay bills. Their lifestyle had disintegrated without my money to support it. I didn't feel vindicated. Rather, I felt distanced, as if they were characters from a narrative I had abandoned. Lena fell harder. Her social media post describing me as domineering and stingy had backfired. Friends and fans turned against her, pointing out her entitlement. Her already fragile fashion firm failed altogether when her last backer walked out. I noticed her profile go silent. There were no more selfies or pitches, only a ghost of the image she had tried to sell. Looking back, I've learned to trust my instincts. That unpleasant sensation I'd suppressed for years was right all along. I had allowed love to blind me, believing that family meant loyalty regardless of the circumstances. However, loyalty does not imply ignoring lies or allowing individuals to drain you. Protecting my worth, money, peace, and boundaries was the most difficult but ultimately rewarding decision I made.